What is the worst experience you have had at a fast food restaurant? Story 1. I worked at McDonald's a while ago, and some kids stole something from a nearby store and got chased by the cops into our parking lot. They ended up getting cornered into our drive-thru, and one of them had been shot earlier in the chase, and we watched him on our cameras get out of the car and fall on the ground and die while the paramedics tried to help him. Was rough. Edit. I guess I should clarify something. The cops didn't shoot the guy just because he stole a couple racks of beer. They shot him because as he was trying to get away, he had a gun and was shooting at the police. That was some bad storytelling on my part. It would be nice if violence by cops wasn't a thing to be worried about, but I'm sure from the officer's perspective, it would be nice if they didn't randomly get shot at by dumbasses over petty theft. It's a complicated situation. Chipotle hands down. This wasn't really Chipotle's fault, rather an individual employee of Chipotle. This girl I was seeing, and I went to Chipotle after class. She got a burrito and I got nachos. Everything was fine until I went to wake her up the next morning, and she literally looked like she was dead. Took her to the ER and they admitted her immediately. She ended up spending almost a week in a hospital and almost died. Turns out someone poisoned the tomatoes and caused half a dozen people to get deathly sick. Luckily nobody died. Needless to say, I haven't been back. Story 2. Applebee's. Every Tuesday night they have a clown called Stinky the Clown come and perform tricks for every table. Stinky accidentally hit me in the eye with his handkerchief. I woke up the next day with the worst pink eye in the entire world. I will never eat at Applebee's again. Story 3. I once dropped my order at McDonald's and the fries went flying all over the floor, under tables, etc. A couple of little kids around 5, both filthy, instantly started snatching them up and eating them. It then became apparent that their parents hadn't bothered to order any food for their kids, just themselves. Story 4. Driving from the Oregon coast to Seattle with a hungry family. We don't eat fast food, but traffic had been terrible and we knew we were in for a long ride, longer than normal, so we pull into a roadside Burger King because it's the only thing to be found for miles that my wife would agree to eat. Because of the traffic and lack of options, the place is packed, tables are dirty, people aren't cleaning up their trash, workers are in a foul mood. We eat as quickly as possible and GTFO of there. About half an hour later I have to pull over because I'm totally nauseous and about to blow out the back end. Luckily I found a bathroom. Wife resumes driving because I can barely hold my head up. I throw up in my empty cup of tea along the way. It starts bucketing rain. An hour in, one of my kids throws up in the car, the other completely shits himself, and throws up too shortly after. I am too sick weak to do much about it and my wife is doing her best just to drive us home. The car reeks of vomit and diarrhea. We're about an hour from Seattle and my wife hurriedly rolls her window down and hurls. We're going 55 down the highway. She's driving, leaning her head out the window in bucketing rain, water streaming down her face. The kids are crying from the wind and the cold and the vomit and we pull over and I resume driving while she occasionally pukes out the window. Worst road trip ever, worst fast food experience ever. I have not eaten at a Burger King since, and this happened 12 years ago. Edit. My wife is a champ. Story 5. First, a tiny bit of background. My wife, who at the time was not just lactose intolerant but get earth-shattering cramps, horrendous smelling diarrhea, and feel like she was on fire reaction if she got just a little bit of any kind of dairy. Later we found out this was caused by a faulty gallbladder that was have since evicted. Well, she went to a McDonald's right across the street from her crappy retail job and ordered a McDouble with no cheese. Like she did about 3 times a week because it was cheap and close and she had very short lunch breaks at said crappy retail job. Well, she gets back to her work and noticed, hey, there is cheese on this. So she has to go all the way back over there and walks into the restaurant and asks to have it replaced. The manager comes over and asks what's wrong. When she said she ordered it without cheese and they put cheese on it, he responded with a flippant so. Now this manager was not some just out of high school kid, he had to be in his 30s, so you would think somewhere along the lines he had grown up, but I guess not. She explains to him she is allergic to cheese and needs one without cheese, so he hands the sandwich back to the grill area and they scrap the cheese off, rewrap it, and try to give it back to her. She watches them do this because he was too far away for her to stop them before he got back to the counter, and then trying to be polite as possible explains she cannot eat a sandwich that has had melted cheese scrapped off of it because she is freaking allergic, you stupid waste of human flesh. So he huffs and gives her more attitude and rolls his eyes and angrily throws the sandwich away and asks the grill to make a new one. She gets it, asks him if he is sure it doesn't have cheese on it. He says yes and she leaves without checking it, gets back to work, opens up the bag, and guess what she finds on her sandwich? 2 slices of cheese. So she gets permission from her boss since now she has already burned like 35 minutes to get a stupid sandwich from across the street and she normally only gets a 30-minute break. Walks back over there and the manager sees her coming and asks her now what. My wife asked to speak to a different manager, who didn't give her any attitude, apologized, personally made her a new one, opened it in front of her to verify there was no cheese on it, and refunded her meal as well. My wife of course got both managers' names and their store number. We then proceeded to report the entire story to McDonald's corporate with a glowing review for the manager who handled it correctly and a very condemning retelling of the crappy service manager A gave her. We got some gift cards from corporate and the owner of that particular franchise verified the story with manager B and manager as employment was terminated. They asked my wife to come tell her story at an employee meeting but she declined. Story 6. So I used to go to this Taco Bell down the street from my high school after finishing band practice with my friends. We went enough times that the drive-thru lady named Tiffany would be ecstatic to see us and give us free. She called us baby every time we went through. It was great. I bet you're wondering how could any of this be bad. Well, the story takes a turn for the worst very quickly. So we do the usual Taco Bell run and order the same thing, get the same free stuff. We get to the window and Tiffany is all smiles when her manager comes up to us and asks to see the recipe. We are kinda deer in the headlight and Tiff is nervous, so the manager grabs the recipe and asks why we are getting free food and drinks in addition to our one quesadilla. Tiff just kinda looks down and mumbles while the manager berates her on giving people free food, then fires her. She began crying and pleading for the job, saying she needed it for her son, but the manager threw her out and gave us our order, the one quesadilla of course, and said he would be keeping an eye on us. TLDR got a very friendly employee fired. Story 7 At McDonald's once at 3 a.m., I went in after a party to have fries and a flurry, cost about 3 to 4 all around. Anyway, as I'm waiting for my food some man comes in, he was rattled. He demanded that the employees remake his whole meal of 3 cheeseburgers with mac sauce, for McChickens and 2 large fries simply because they forgot mac sauce on one of the burgers. Between his rage and threats to hop the counter and beat the out of everyone, they obliged. It has been nearly 5 minutes now, and I have not yet received my fries and ice cream and I feel uncomfortable standing beside this man. But what can one do then? He notices something. He notices that a kid working with the food, he assumes his food is working without wearing gloves. He demands the kid come up front and face him. At this point I'm absorbed by what may happen, but annoyed that the man is such a. When the kid comes to the counter to talk to the red-faced, fists-clenched man, he gets real nervous. The man tells the kid it's illegal to handle food without wearing gloves, and that if he doesn't fix this right now he'll call the cops. At this point, I want to tell this man he's being ridiculous. I have worked for 3 restaurants and have never heard of this bogus law, but I just want my fries, and it's been nearly 10 minutes now. By now the whole restaurant is on hold to deal with this man, and I overhear some people sitting at a table say let's get out of here before I kick that guy's. After all, it's McDonald's, what were you expecting? Superior quality. He demands they remake his food because of the whole glove issue, and I was about to say something when someone in the kitchen calls the cops because that whole situation needed to be defused. By now, I decide my food is a lost cause. I leave without getting my money back. This happened almost a year ago. A few weeks back I was at Denny's and had another encounter with the same unstable man. Thanks for reading. TLDR ordered 3 of food and McDs. Man comes in angry about what he received in his drive-through order. Stalls whole restaurant nearly 10 to 20 minutes. I leave without my food. I got sick on a shitty McDonald's chicken sandwich, and while I was in the bathroom purging my mistake, my car was stolen from the parking lot. Story 8 I went into a Roy Rogers restaurant once. I paid for a burger and fries. I expected there would be a cook in a kitchen somewhere who would then make a burger for me to eat, but instead I was shown a rack of stuff made a few days ago sitting under red lamps. I took one and unwrapped it. The dried-up meat patty slipped out and clonked on the counter. Clonked. I looked up at the cashier and they just stared back at me. I put it back on its stale bun. There were other people in the restaurant. They were all eating this stuff like some kind of weird zombie Twilight Zone. How did these people not know there were other fast food joints, equally accessible off the highway, where for the same money a person will actually cook the meat right then and there and serve it to you, and include things like vegetables? I even saw one eat a French fry, which broke off like a pretzel stick in their mouth. Madness. That was the first and last time I entered a Roy Rogers. A repost from an AskReddit asking what the creepiest thing I ever experienced on a road trip was. Story 9 Earlier last year I was traveling through Eastern TN, and we decided to hit up this local KFC favorite that toted an all-you-can-eat buffet. The sheer novelty of an all-you-can-eat buffet overrode my common sense, so my traveling partner and I went there for dinner. It may have been, hands down, the most depressing meal I've ever eaten. The chicken was lukewarm at best. Everything kind of had this greasy film over it. The vegetables clearly were pulled out of a cheap can and more or less were nothing more than a medium for butter sauce. The mashed potatoes were clumpy and dry, like they had been sitting out for a week. They only gave us 3 cheap paper plates and would not supply more if asked. I thought that was weird for an all-you-can-eat buffet, but it didn't matter because after second round, I had enough. I just had an awful feeling sitting in my stomach that felt like grease and sadness. What was worse were the people around us. The place was packed with what seemed to be locals sitting around eating a very standard weekday meal. Their bodies reflected that. Never in my life have I seen so many morbidly obese families. Children only the age of 10 were easily 3 times my weight. We returned to our hostel and I ended up puking everything over that evening. I didn't stop vomiting until I tasted my oatmeal from earlier that morning. Then I was fine. Story 10 I ordered a McRib and when after a few bites I realized it was cold, opened it and the meat was completely raw. I complained and they checked it and said they would give me and my friends any meal we wanted for free. I was 15 so that was brilliant. They kept the raw McRib and I had awful food poisoning for nearly 2 weeks. I don't agree with this sue everyone culture, but I think I would have been justified if I wasn't paid off with a few free burgers. Story 11 McDonald's 1 a.m. I pulled up to the window and ordered a McDouble, a McChicken, and a large fry. Easy peasy. I drive up to pay and the woman working there hands me a McDouble, a McChicken, and a large black coffee. Large black coffee? I asked. Yes, she replied. I ordered a large fry actually. No, you ordered a large black coffee. I'm pretty sure I ordered a large fry. Nope, you ordered a coffee. No, I didn't. Yes, you did, sir. Fine. Just give me the coffee. Being non-confrontational, I pull out of the drive-thru and drive back into the line to order my large fry. When I get up the window I make sure to clearly and loudly enunciate, "Yes, I would like a large FRY, a large FRY. French FRY large." I get up to the pickup window for the second time and the same woman hands me yet another large black coffee. "I definitely ordered a large fry." "No, you ordered a large black coffee." "No, I ordered a large fry." "You said black coffee." "No, I didn't." "Yes, you did." Why would I drive all the way around and go through the drive-thru again and order a black coffee that, again, I don't want? So after 2 round trips through the drive-thru, I finally got my large fry, along with 2 large black coffees, at 1 a.m. Story 12. I got some Wendy's chili once, about 12 years ago, in diarrhea. My thought was, no way Wendy's chili did this. I went to the doctor and got checked out. He gave me a clean bill of health. Had Wendy's chili about a year later and again I diarrhea, so, as best I can figure, Wendy's chili makes me blood. A few things it was from the same Wendy's, so maybe it's that Wendy's correlation doesn't necessarily equal causation. So I guess I could have blood 2 separate times on 2 separate occasions and the chili eating was a coincidence, but I somewhat doubt that, certainly possible though. My wife has brought up the notion that it isn't, in fact, blood and is just some deep red diarrhea due to food coloring, tomato, some kind of spice, which seems possible, but nothing else has ever made me do that. Basically, just to be safe, I don't eat Wendy's chili. Story 13. I found a cockroach in a Sonic burger. Well, half a cockroach, when I went inside and found the manager and showed him the chewed-up pile of burger in the parking lot, with a half roach. He told me I put it there. That was in 1985. I haven't eaten at a Sonic since. No big loss. Story 14. Okay, so I was in this restaurant in Dubai. I had ordered a soup. After waiting for a good 45 minutes my soup came out. I put the spoon into the soup to drink it, and I kid you not there was a used condom in there. Not kidding. Story 15. When I was a kid I loved McDonald's but only ate plain cheeseburgers. So whenever somebody was ordering my food ID make sure they asked for plain, otherwise I wouldn't eat it. Yeah, I was a fussy when I was a kid. Anyway, so it was my friend's birthday party and we stopped by McDonald's on the way home. I told my friend's mom I would like a plain cheeseburger in my Happy Meal and she brings everyone's meals to the table. "This one is the plain cheeseburger," she says as she hands me my box of lies. My excitement quickly turned to despair upon my first bite. It wasn't plain, far from it. The gut-wrenching concoction that lay atop the patty gave my taste buds the fright of their life. "This isn't plain," I told my friend's mom. Now hey race where the story gets worse. She figures out she gave the plain burger to my friend's sister instead and she had already taken a couple of hefty bites out of it. Now, I had a little bit of a germ phobia when I was young, so when she swapped the partially eating burgers around, uniting me with my much longed for plain burger, I was a little hesitant to eat it. In fact, I was pretty adamant that burger would never grace my lips. My friends began to kick up a fuss and kept telling me to eat it. I tried to tell them that I didn't like other people's germs, but it was no use. The birthday boy was very angry at me, and from his point of view I can understand why. It didn't matter to me who had had a bite of it. I was never going to eat a burger someone else had half-eaten. It had to be his sister, didn't it? I thought to myself. It was like some horrible sense of fate that out of all the people at the party, the one person with Down syndrome had a bite of my cheeseburger, thus making me look worse than Hitler. That incident is forever known as the McGerm burger. Story 16. There used to be a KFC just outside of downtown Napa, California. It was located within walking distance of a pet supply store that was happy to let customers bring their dogs, cats, goldfish, or whatever else with them while they did their shopping. Unfortunately, the proximity of these two businesses meant that some people would occasionally try to have their pets accompany them for lunch, and although the management frowned on that, they didn't do very much to curb the behavior either. On the day in question, I had stopped into the restaurant for what I hoped would be a quick meal before a job interview. It wasn't the smartest detour, I'll admit, but to be entirely honest, the smell from outside the establishment had attracted me. Unfortunately, the moment that I walked through the front door, I was hit by an almost debilitating wave of nausea as the thick, pungent stench of wet dog filled my nostrils. It was almost enough to make me turn around and leave, but I foolishly decided that since I'd already made it inside, I should still get something to eat. My first mistake, if you don't count my continued presence in the restaurant, was looking for the source of the smell. I wound up making eye contact with a large woman sitting near the front counter, who was alternating between dropping ice cubes down various parts of her clothing and pouring small amounts of water onto the floor. These puddles were being consumed by an equally large dog of indeterminate breed that looked as though it had recently been in a fight with a particularly irate landfill. My second mistake was mentioning the unpleasant aroma to the girl who took my order. Although she expressed sympathy and told me that the manager had already been informed, my complaint was overheard by the woman who was responsible for the odorous beast. "Heh," she yelled, sounding rather like a creaky hinge. "What'd you say about my dog?" When I didn't respond, the woman shouted again. "Heh heh, I'm talking to you, you got a problem with my dog." Seeing no other alternative, I turned to face the woman. "He doesn't smell very nice," I said. "Heh," the woman replied, "you got a problem with how he smells." Before I could think of a response, the woman hurled her half-full cup at me, thoroughly drenching my suit. Furthermore, it turned out that she hadn't been sharing water with a canine, but rather some kind of clear soda. I wound up having to rush away for a change of clothes before I could complain to the manager, and when I returned later on that afternoon, I was told by another employee that I was too late to report anything. That was the last time I visited that particular KFC. The smell, incidentally, was still lingering when I left. TLDR, a wet dog's owner assaulted me with Sprite. Story 17. I've got one. So I'm in a drive-through line at a combined KFC Taco Bell to pick up some food for other people who weren't there, and I wasn't getting anything. 2 cars are ahead of me, and 5 minutes later I finally get up to the microphone menu thing to order. Very slow considering they're not busy, but no big deal. It's 8 at night and they're probably understaffed, so I place my order of a few burritos and a chicken sandwich, and then wait another 5 minutes or so for the one remaining car ahead of me to get their order, and then I pull up to the window. No one is there. After about 2 minutes of staring into an empty window, a young lad comes by, swings open the hatch, and holds out a hand, presumably for my debit card. I pay, and get my card back and a receipt without a word being exchanged. 5 minutes go by without another soul coming to the window. Now, unless Taco Bell and KFC actually import their ingredients from Mexico and Kentucky, I can't figure out what was going on. The young lad finally comes by with my food, and I very politely say, I know it's not your fault, but can I speak to your manager? I've been here a very long time. Yeah, hold on. This is no exaggeration. After another few minutes of no one coming to the window, I'm determined to speak to the manager. 10 minutes after getting my food, my car is still in park sitting in front of the window. The line, even at this late hour, is getting rather long. I decide it's time to head inside. I pull around, park, then go wait in line. There's only one older woman ahead of me, and she just finished her order when I walked in. As soon as I came through the door, everyone behind the counter headed to the back and disappeared, so I'm just standing there holding my hands in front of me. A friendly smile passes between me and the old lady. Another 5 minutes or so pass, and suddenly I see flashing red and blue lights reflecting off of the walls. I look out the windows to see 5 police Crown Vics and SUVs pouring into the parking lot like a bank was being robbed. I exchange a glance at the lady next to me, both of us feeling perplexed. An officer comes in through the door, glances around, and says to no one in particular what's going on here. I turn to him, shrug, and say, you're probably here for me. A young lady who works there, the manager, appears from amongst the cooking appliances, flanked by 2 other employees. All of them have their name tags removed. Officer, get him out of here. He was hollering and banging on the window. I turn to the officer, and he nods his head toward the door. I tell him what happened, and he rolls his eyes and says it's a private business, so they technically can say you're not welcome if they choose. As we're standing out in the parking lot, he says to me the 911 call they received was, we need the cops. Click, they thought the worst at this time of day, and hence the large police response. The final interaction between the cops and me was, are we blocking you in? We can move if we are. Kind of, do you mind? Not at all, have a good night. You too. I live in the same town, and I haven't been back there in the 5 years since. Story 18. 45 minutes to get an omelet at IHOP. The rest of the table got their food in 5 minutes. I sat there like a schnook waiting and questioning the waitress. Almost went into the kitchen to cook them myself. Last time I was at IHOP, 17 years and counting. Story 19. To know if Applebee's counts, but I had to wait an hour for my food, and when I got it, it was cold. The restaurant was only moderately busy, dinner rush had just ceased, and ID ordered chicken strips, so literally 6 minutes in the fryer. Story 20. I in college long time ago, my roommate and I pull into our favorite chain that as far as I know has been stricken from planet Earth, Hot and Now. Hot and Now was famous amongst people with no money for 59 burgers and fries and 89 huge Mountain Dews. The employees were all ghetto as because this place was smack in the middle of the hood, but it was so delish we pull in, order our typical 3 or 4 hamburgers, couple of fries and sodas, all coming in for about a few bucks. Anyway, let's call her Queen Latifah. X5 takes our order and says, that will be $5.25. Pull up and hand her $5.25. The 400 pounds. Queen screams at me. I said $5.75, like I had direly offended her. I say okay and simply hand her another 50 cents. She closes the window at the drive-thru, disappears for about 5 or so minutes. We are starting to wonder if our food is ever going to show up, and are laughing our asses off repeating $5.25. Finally, the window comes flying open and she literally throws the bag of food into my car and screams motherfuckers, and then slams the window shut. Story 21. Hold on to your asses. This is a long one. Popular Chinese chain in San Antonio. I came back because I used to work there. My girlfriend and I were seated by a lady. Like normal, we are both younger, and we noticed that she would show up and help older families right next to us while skipping around us. When she did show up, she was snappy and rude. We got our food and couldn't finish it. The chicken tasted like ketchup, and the rest was soggy. The lady continued to talk to people around us, only stopping to give the check. I tipped $2, and said in the back of the receipt that I won't be returning. Maybe too far. She grabs the ticket before I could finish it. As we were about to leave, she slams the ticket in front of us because I forgot to sign, and grabbed it out of my hands, walking off after I signed it. This is where it gets stupid. I asked the host for the manager. The host then tells me no because she has kids and that he has morals. He stormed off. I worked there, so I went to the manager and told him what happened. As I was leaving, the host starts back at us saying, I can't believe you snitched, which was my cue to leave. I called the manager from outside, who was in shock that this is happening, and assured that he'll take care of it. TLDR, Texas-sized Chinese food down throwdown. Edit, holy my grammar sucked, on mobile and in a hurry, and the restaurant chain had golden in its name. It was more funny than anything. The only fast food restaurant I rarely go to with my wife is Burger King for the vegetarian hamburger. Once in Portland, Oregon, we order our hamburgers and we drive to the window, and and the guy takes our monies and says, "Do you guys mind if I hold my nose when I bring your hamburgers? I really don't like the vegetarian hamburger smell." We had a good laugh about it after we left. Story 22. I'm taking eyes for my GF Yelp review. Let me preface this by saying I have, in all honesty, never experienced a more awkward eating situation in my life. My boyfriend and I decided to try this place out after he saw that they had Vietnamese sandwiches. We sat down and the waitress was very accommodating, providing us with large glasses of water, and waiting while we picked out our meals. I decided on the sweet and sour chicken lunch special. While he ordered a Vietnamese sandwich and some soup, my egg drop soup came out and it was delicious. He received his soup and sandwich, and was very pleased with both. Finally, my sweet and sour chicken was delivered. I took one bite and realized that it tasted strongly of plastic. I, not wanting to make a fuss over something that may have been a figment of my imagination, asked my boyfriend to try it. He agreed that the chicken was inedible due to its plastic taste. We proceeded to tell the waitress that the food tasted of plastic, so she took the dish away, without asking if I wanted something else to eat. Shortly thereafter, an older woman came up and said that the business had been there for 28 years, and that she was going to show me that she had not served me rubber, but had, in fact, served me chicken. My fork was still in the plate, and she asked which piece of chicken I had eaten, to which I replied I had consumed the entire piece. I noticed she had a plastic fork sitting on the plate as well. After I responded to her, she proceeded to take the fork and do the unthinkable. Yes, she ate off the plate I had returned to her. She bit into a piece of chicken and proceeded to show me the other half, declaring to myself, my boyfriend, and the people seated at the booth next to us see chicken, not rubber. She then awkwardly cornered the lady in the booth and asked her if it was chicken or a rubber band, and said I had accused her of serving me a rubber band. The lady in the booth agreed that it was chicken, but that was not the issue. She and her husband promptly left. The waitress came and apologized, and asked if I wanted something else to eat, while the chef owner was hovering nearby. I replied that after having been treated like that, especially after she had taken a fork and eaten off of my plate, that I would not be ordering anything else. The chef owner continued hovering, and the waitress continued apologizing. When she came to bring our bill, which she had written "I'm sorry" on, the elderly woman came and asked again if I wanted something else to eat, and continued to imply that there was nothing wrong with the chicken, which tasted like a garbage bag had fallen into the deep fryer. I told her no, and that I would not deal with her continued harassment. She upset me to no end, implying that I only did not like the taste of the chicken because I was either crazy or trying to get out of paying. We left the waitress a $5 tip as she had been kind and got out of there as soon as possible. Unfortunately, we are both still very hungry and now must find another Thai place so we can finish our postponed lunch. In all fairness, the soup was good. If you just order soup and get it to go, you might be okay, but avoid interacting with the chef owner. TLDR, the owner came screaming at us when we complained the food tasted like plastic, ate off our plate to show it not rubber, it chicken. Story 23. I was in the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A once. This was a few weeks after they'd done something controversial. I can't remember if they'd first come out with their anti-gay speech or donated to a religious cause or something, but this was when a bunch of religious people in my state were going to Chick-fil-A to show their support, and a bunch of other people were boycotting them for their controversial, hateful views. Anyway, the car ahead of me rolled down his window and just started absolutely berating the girl at the drive-thru, like screaming at her and calling her the scum of the earth for working at a corporation like Chick-fil-A and a bunch of other nasty names, saying that she was personally enacting a hate crime and stuff by working there. He then threw a drink at the window, hitting the glass wall but not her directly, and then drove away. When I pulled up, she was just standing there frozen and red-faced and crying. She was like 16 years old. I asked her if she was okay and she just kind of nodded and walked away before I could say anything else. I don't agree with Chick-fil-A's views, but I was appalled that some random dude could freak out on a defenseless teenager who just needed a low-wage job. It just sucked to witness. Story 24. At a Taco Bell. Inside my burrito I found a hair and then bit into a hard plastic object. The hair was gross, but the hard plastic thing was painful and just odd to be inside my burrito. Story 25. My friend and I went to some place, not sure which, think the color scheme was orange and white, but I don't remember the name. Anyways, we both asked for the same thing, a plain cheeseburger, nothing special on it, just meat and cheese. Well, out they come to give us our food, and we end up getting different things somehow. I get a burger full of what appeared to be everything they could gather in the condiments closet and vegetable drawer, whereas my friend ended up with nothing but a patty and some cheese stuck to it. To be clear, my friend got no bread, and just got a plastic container with a patty and some slightly melted cheese. Story 26. This was more just hilarious. In high school, our homeroom would all order food from a restaurant on our school's field day. Just a fun day where we competed for non-existent points. My homeroom chose Chipotle, and we filled out our order cards. When the burritos come, my burrito was a tortilla filled entirely with pico de gallo, like a solid pound, wrapped to look like a normal burrito. It was hilarious. Story 27. One night myself and the bass player for my band were coming home from practice. We decided to stop at Taco Bell and get some food. Our order was pretty simple. For soft tacos, 2 burrito supremes and 2 large Cokes. The first indication something was wrong here was that it took 45 minutes from the time we ordered our food until we got to the window. Then we got there was this skinny black kid at the window. I hand him my money, and he just shoves a bag in my face and doesn't say anything. I look inside, and there's 2 burrito supremes and 2 soft tacos. So I tell him, I paid for 4 soft tacos and there's only 2 here. Can I have the other 2 please? He takes the bag back and throws 1 more taco in it, then shoves it back in my face and closes the window on me as soon as I have it. So I knock on the window, and I say, hey, we're still short a soft taco here. The kid starts climbing out the window and he's yelling at me, hey, I'm not your boy, don't make me come out there and kick your monkey, I'm not your boy. And we just think this is hilarious cause this kid is so tiny he's not kicking anyone's and there's one of him and 2 of us, we're just telling him, hey bud, come on out. About this time I see an arm come up from behind the kid and grab him by his shirt collar and then him out of the window. It's the manager. He starts apologizing for the kid and asked us what was the problem. We explained that we were just trying to get the food we paid for. He takes our bag back, and replaces all of our food with fresh stuff, and gives us each a coupon for some free food next time we come. So it all ended well, but was definitely the most WTF experience I've ever had at a fast food place. Edit: the delete was a McDonald's drive-thru, waited forever in line because the drive-thru was all gummed up because I would later find out that the girls working there were dumber than, after I pulled up to the window and paid, they sent me to one of those reserved parking spots where they bring the food out to you. Even though my order was 5 and I was probably the only car in that entire drive-thru that didn't have 3 or 4 drunk dude bro shipwrecks inside, each taking like 7 minutes to decide what they want, I waited 30 minutes in that spot and watched countless cars move through the line with their stuff and get on with their night. Finally I went up the door and knocked, dining room was closed. They told me to be right out, bullshit, waited another 15 to 20, knocked again, and they finally gave me my food. All told about an hour went by between placing my order and receiving it. I would have just left, but I already paid and am a cheapskate broke dash. Oh by the way, I ordered plain McChickens. Plain means just the chicken and the bun, no sauce and no lettuce. I get home and what do I find? The things are slathered in that white McDonald's sauce. I seriously considered going back and burning the place down. I also once found a screw in my Whataburger. An actual screw, it was in my mouth. At first I thought it was burnt meat, but I spit it out, and alas, I've since designated that Whataburger as the shitty Whataburger. In case anyone's curious, it's on Barton Springs Road in Austin.